might then open up to anyone that has any questions, but of course questions can happen over a glass of wine as well. I would only say from my position that there is a very interesting spectrum of articles that come in throughout the month. One thing that I have not seen yet is anything written by AI, and that's fantastic. I'm very happy about that, but we do have a new AI policy which could be very quickly surmised as, if you use it at your own risk. I see students use it all the time. It's probably got about a 30% strike rate. And so Philip's told me I have to look ominously into the camera up there, so it's recorded. Use it at your own risk. Wonderful. Before we go, there are a lot of work that goes into the background here, and that is by Donna and by Philip, who have been working hard to make this happen. We have done countless comms checks, because I'm obsessed with making sure that the comms work. So I'd like to have a round of applause for them both. Is there any questions? Yes, please. Name as well, if you may. Would you like a microphone?
Lynn Stewart. A couple of you mentioned about how many times your article has been read, that you seem to get some feedback from some source that I don't know about, but gave you some statistics on that. Can you elaborate on that?
I can make a couple of points. First of all, you do find your work cited by other historians. That is not sorry, the light is on. Okay. So first of all, you do find yourself cited by other historians sometimes, and that gives you an impression of what kind of impact, if any, your article has had. And the second thing is that sometimes people will actually tell you, either in an email or a letter or in a face-to-face conversation, that they've read the article. So you do get some kind of feedback. And these days as well, you have online sources where you can check the number of times that your work has been cited. For example, Google Scholar is one example of that. And it doesn't tell you everyone who's read the article, but it does give you a bit of a guide.
Stuart Reid, I just wondered if, in terms of rejected articles, there was taboo topics, and it wasn't about bad writing or poor support for arguments, but touchy subjects and a dark history, whether that was on the horizon too.
No, there's at least for me as editor, I mean, the final decision comes to me. I won't reject anything just because it's taboo or because it's against the grain. If it's historically founded, I mean, the whole point of peer review, as I see it as the editor, is that I can turn around and say it was peer reviewed. I've had this happen in another journal that I edit, which is a law journal, which was critiquing judges based on how long it takes for them to get judgments out. It's probably a very career limiting move for me if I ever want to become a judge. To the point where I got a nasty gram from the chief of, from where I'm recording, so I won't say who, but I got a nasty gram, and it was very easy to say it'd been peer reviewed. It was correct. The statistics were correct. Didn't matter that it brought down the prestige of the judge. Yeah.
I think the ones that have been rejected, it's been because they aren't scholarly. Their referencing is suspect, and they're factually, can be demonstrated factually incorrect. No topics are taboo, far from it.
I might add to that though, the only time something will get rejected is if it's caught being doubly published. So if someone has published something and hasn't materially changed it in resubmitting, and again, that is the peer review process. You're asking the peer reviewers, is this any different? Part of the checklist when you submit is you declare that it hasn't been submitted elsewhere. It doesn't happen regularly. It does happen on occasion.
It does happen. It's happened.
Yeah. Any more for any more?
I'd just like to say, while we're having things, I've obviously edited, I've also a peer reviewer. So people just want to come up and say, you know, one of the peer review things or talk about just the whole editing process, more than happy to do that and encourage people to write things and submit. And sometimes an informal chat. I always find that when I'm peer reviewing and there's an unsatisfactory article, I'm always notorious for sending in to the editors a list of things I think that could be fixed up, and happy to have the author contact me for if they needed to sort of get some encouragement on, because it's a tough job sometimes writing these things, and sometimes you get, you know, peer reviews that aren't quite right and you go away discouraged. So you've got to really try and be positive and encourage people.
Yes, I would say that the peer review process, it used to be, shock horror, I wasn't alive in the 60s, but I do understand that it was quite aggressive in the 60s. And I won't reject something on the basis of some academics say that they didn't cite me, therefore they're wrong. I don't care, that's fine. Thank you for the peer review. Often if it is a fundamentally big problem from a peer review process, I will say revise and resubmit. Now I do genuinely mean, please resubmit. Editors take a lot of time. This takes up a lot of time in my life. I want people to submit. It's just that we have to go through the process. But if it's minor changes, it'll be a revise and then we'll publish. I have never seen a paper come in that said absolutely fantastic, no comments. Thank you very much. There's always something to learn.
A question for you, Sam.
Oh.
Do you use a double-blind peer review process, and how often is the journal published in a year?
Right, so 2 questions. It's published twice a year, and often there's 4 articles per issue. At the moment, we have this year is full. We're happy with the journals. We can obviously do more. There is always scope for an extra article or something, particularly if it's a pressing issue. Most historical issues are not pressing, but sometimes they can be. And in terms of the peer review process, we will, it's always blind peer review. No, and that by that, it means that no one, when I send the article off, it doesn't, the reviewers don't know who wrote it. So it won't have on there, this paper is by Sam White, can you please review? Everything is scrubbed, particularly down to the footnotes that, you know, there might be, as I noted in my book, and there'll be a footnote to the book, that will get scrubbed, so that there is absolutely no way that you know who wrote it, and that stops the gatekeeping a lot of time. If it's a good article, it'll pass.
And the author doesn't know who their peer review is.
And the author doesn't know if Ian wants to give his details, and he says you can pass this on and give my name to the person who wrote it, we will do that. But the comments are scrubbed as well. So you just get 2 bits that says peer reviewer 1 said this, peer reviewer 2 said that, and usually about 10 dot points each. Yeah, David.
I'm just going to quickly add that sometimes as a reviewer, you can tell who wrote the article.
Yeah. And in that scenario where you do know, it's often put on that peer reviewer to come back and say, I know that Sam wrote that article. I don't want to review it, or I won't review it.
Well, there's a conflict.
Or there's a conflict of interest. So, for example, I can't review anything of Ben's. He's a doctoral student, but sometimes as an editor, I will peer review something, but they might not know that I am peer reviewer too. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, look, everyone, thank you very much for coming, and a round of applause for the panel.